The flat earth has, believe it or not, become a movement in the last few years. About 2015 it started up. And people may wonder, well, Danny, why are you so concerned about this? Why are you talking about flat earth so much? Well, you see, our critics for a long time have been equating belief in creation with belief that the earth is flat. And so I view the flat earth movement as a personal assault, really, upon my calling and upon the ministry of Answers in Genesis. Didn't we answer this question, settle this question 5 centuries ago? I mean, after all, didn't Christopher Columbus prove that the earth is a globe? Well, actually, we didn't settle it 5 centuries ago. We settled it 25 centuries ago. And in fact, I think that's part of the problem we have here, is the fact that people's understanding of history on this whole matter is rather poor. Well, how do we know it goes back that far? Well, Pythagoras, you may have heard of him with the Pythagorean theorem and a few other things that he did. In the late 6th century BC, he actually talked about the earth being a sphere. We don't know what his reasons were. We can only speculate about that. But it went forward from there. But within 100 years, most Greek thinkers were thinking the earth was a sphere. And so we have some good reasons for believing the earth is a globe. How do we know that? Well, here we have a photograph of a total lunar eclipse. I took this in January of last year, about 15 months ago now, and it was quite a last total solar eclipse, a lunar eclipse visible from here, and this is during totality. This is about a 12-second exposure because the moon was very dim. But I also took photographs during the partial phases before and after the eclipse. And here's one of those photographs right there. I show the moon moving in from the right, upper right in fact, and that's exactly how the moon moved in on the Earth's shadow. And you can already see the edge of the Earth's shadow there, and you can get an idea of the shape of the Earth's shadow. It's kind of a curved section there. Now, I took this about an hour before totality. I took another one afterwards, totality, and I put it in the same right position here, and I think you can understand now a little better what kind of shape the Earth's shadow is. If you're really not seeing it at all, I can help you out and put a circle in for you. Turns out the circle of the Earth's shadow is about 2.5 times that of the circle of the moon. So the moon can be entirely engulfed inside of that shadow, giving us a total lunar eclipse. Aristotle, in 350 BC, wrote a book called On the Heavens, and he wrote that in his book, this is one of the arguments why we know the earth is a sphere. He gave a couple others. Here's another one I like. He looked at the altitude of stars in both the northern and southern parts of the sky. I have a photograph here of the Ark Encounter. Many of you will recognize exactly where that was taken, over near Zara's Cafe, looking at the front there. This photograph was taken by a good friend of mine, Jim Bonser from Iowa, a pastor there, a good friend of the ministry. And we had special permission a couple years ago. We went down there and spent about half a night shooting this photograph and a few others. And this is a half-hour exposure. You can see the stars are going in a big circular pattern. Near the center of that, just above the arc, you'll see one single star. That's Polaris, the North Star. And the Polaris, or the North Star, is within a degree of this point in the sky we call the North Celestial Pole. To the eye, and even to this photograph, it's going to look like the North Star stays still and all the other stars spin around it. Now, less known is the fact that that angle that it makes with the northern horizon is equal to your latitude. So at the arc, it's around 38, 39 degrees. So that's how high that the North Star is. And as I travel around the country and around the world, I always make it a point to look at where the North Star is in the sky. If I can find it, some parts of the world you can't. Now, this was Samuel Rowbottom. He was a 19th century Englishman. He wrote some books, did a lot of lecturing and speaking. He made a lot of what he called the Bedford Level experiment. The Bedford Level is this region in place in eastern England where the land appears to be very flat. There's a canal basically that's been dug that's very straight, and with no real tilt. There's not much of a current at all, and they've got this long thing that goes on for 6 miles that's reasonably flat. And what he did is he got down into the water there at point A on the right in the diagram, 8 inches above the surface of the water. That's key because if the Earth is a globe 25,000 miles around, then if you're 8 inches above the water, in 1 mile's distance, your view will be blocked by that edge of the Earth. Anything beyond that, sitting right on the water, theoretically will not be visible. So what he did is he had somebody get in a rowboat, and they rowed away from him the entire 6 miles. First mile, of course, he's in view, but beyond that, he reasoned, being 8 inches above the water with his telescope, the bottom of that boat should start to disappear, and the boat should continue on disappearing and disappearing. You can see a flag or a marker sitting up there about 6 feet up in the boat. Well, Rowbottom was able to see that boat the entire length. They said, aha, if the curvature would block out my view of the boat over 6 miles, and yet I'm still seeing the boat, then the earth must be flat. You see this little red line I'm showing you here draws from the boat back towards the observer, but because of the curvature of the earth, it's greatly exaggerated here, of course. It exits out into space, moving off on a tangent, so it's not visible. Now, I put down there that the problem is he ignored atmospheric refraction caused by temperature inversions. I don't have time to talk about the physics of all of this, but the speed of light depends critically upon, in air at least, depends critically upon the temperature of the air. In warmer air, the light travels more quickly. In colder air, it travels more slowly. As it turns out, bodies of water stay relatively cool during the summertime because water has a large specific heat. In the winter, it generally stays warmer. That's why if you have a location near a very large body of water, the temperature is moderated tremendously. The Gulf Stream, for instance, moderates the temperature in the British Isles and parts of Northern Europe. If you do this in the summer or in spring on a warm day, the air temperature is almost always going to be warmer than the water temperature. The water temperature will chill the air close to it, so you end up with a layer of very cold air, and the light moves more slowly in that. As it starts to move on that tangent, leaving the cooler air into the warmer air, it cannot do that. It's going to be refracted or bent downward, and it's going to curve along the edge of the earth. There's a perfectly reasonable and logical and physical explanation as to why people sometimes get these results, as Rowbottom did 150 years ago, 180 years ago now, there on the Bedford level. Oh, I got a photograph here of a drawing, a depiction of the creation of day 2. You have there on the left Jesus the Creator, of course, according to Apostle John in the New Testament, and you have there the earth, and it's surrounded by this expanse, this rakia, firmament, the King James says, around the earth with waters above. That's very clearly day 2 creation. And I want you to look at the shape of the earth. Do you get the impression that it is flat? No, you get this distinct impression it is a globe, it's a ball, it's a sphere. Now, where did this depiction come from? It comes from a Bible that belonged to King John the Good of France. Now, we know how old this Bible is because I think it was in the year 1356. He was defeated by the English in the Battle of Poitiers, and this was taken by the English as part of the prize and spoils of war. And we think the Bible was actually put together around 1350. This is 150 years or so before Columbus's voyage. So again, by 1350, people clearly were believing the earth was a globe. Common knowledge, actually, in the West. So I would like to talk a little bit about some of the supposed biblical arguments for a flat earth. I don't have time to do all of them. I will talk about the rakia. That's a Hebrew word. This is something that God made on day 2. Its purpose was to separate the waters above from the waters below. People have debated exactly what those waters above are, and we'll continue to debate that. But this appears to be the cosmology of the Bible, if you will. Now, on day 4, 2 days hence, from the day 2 creation, God put the luminaries, or the lights, in the sky. He said he made the greater light and lesser light. He made the stars also, and I think that's referring to basically all astronomical bodies. There's a reason why I would say that. Many flat earthers today want to use the word star in the modern context and enforce it back on what most people throughout time thought stars were. For instance, the planets were stars, as it turns out. Today, we still sometimes refer to them as, say, the evening star or the morning star. I've taken some photographs and put photographs up of some planets recently, and I refer to them as stars. Why? Because that's what they look like in the sky. I've had people recently ask me about this very bright star in the evening sky. It's Venus, folks. It looks like a star, and I have no trouble calling it that because that's what it looks like. Now, in the early translations of the Bible into English, they translated this word rakia into firmament. However, many more modern translations translate it as expanse, and there's a very good reason why they do that, because that's probably the best meaning for the word. I happen to know several world-class Hebraists, people who really not only know Hebrew, but they know probably 18 to 24 other ancient related Semitic languages. And by knowing the full range in all those other languages helps you to understand what the Hebrew means. And they say unanimously that it means expanse. It doesn't mean this hard thing up in the sky, despite what many flat earthers try to claim. Now, they also argue, flat earthers say, well, the earth was made before the sun. How can that be? Well, we've always believed that the earth was made before the sun, several days before the sun. That's not a problem. All right, doesn't automatically mean that the earth is a globe or it means it's flat. It just means that the earth was made before the sun. No problem at all. I don't understand what the point about that one is. They're saying, well, God, if he made the earth first, it can't be a sphere orbiting the sun. Well, why can't he? He is God. He can do what he wishes. Now, ultimately, you have to ask the question, if the Bible teaches the earth is flat, then shouldn't there somewhere be in the Bible some sort of verse that says something like the earth is flat? But there is no such verse. There is no such verse that says that. Now, what flat earthers do is they take a number of passages, number of verses, and they choose to read them in a manner that's consistent with a flat earth. And then they say, aha, this is the meaning of what the scriptures say. And I'm saying, well, no, you're going to have to be hard-pressed to find any Bible scholars, any Hebraists, anybody who's going to agree with you on that. Sometimes they'll say, well, those are just man's ideas. Yes, but you are a man too, so why should I believe you when you know very little about these things and these other people know far, far more than you do? It doesn't really work. The complaint that they're merely men works both ways, you see, but somehow flat earthers don't seem to realize that. Now, one verse the flat earthers love is Isaiah 40:22. That's one of their favorite ones. It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to dwell in. They say, aha, circle. A circle is two-dimensional. It's a flat plane. It is a round thing, equidistant points from a center in a plane. Therefore, a circle, this means the earth must be a circle. Aha, the earth is flat and round, as you can see here. Well, if you want to take that definition of the word circle, your particular peculiar definition of it, and you want to impose it upon ancient Hebrew, well, that's fine. But again, that is eisegesis. What does the Hebrew word there refer to? Well, it refers to something round. Now, is a circle a two-dimensional thing? Is it round? The answer is yes. Is a sphere, a globe, a ball, is it round? And the answer is yes. So both are round. And the word here is a bit ambiguous. It can refer to something that is a two-dimensional circle. It can refer to something that is a ball. They try to argue, the flat earthers do, that it means only a circle and not anything else, and that simply is false. Some flat earthers, and I can't believe they go here, they point out the earth having four corners. Well, does it have four corners? Let's look at it. Isaiah 11:12. It says, he will raise a signal for the nations and will assemble the banished of Israel and gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Or how about this, Revelation 7:1? After this I saw four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, holding back the four winds of the earth, so that no wind might blow on the earth or against any tree. Again, the earth, Scripture says, has four corners. There are no corners on a globe. So therefore, the earth is not a globe. It must be flat. Case dismissed. Slam dunk. We're done. As I said, I can't believe some flat earthers actually make that argument. Which is it? Is the earth round or is it square? Well, at least one flat earther in the 1890s, Orlando Ferguson, kind of split the difference. He had what I call here the roulette wheel model of the earth. It's square with angels in the corners, but then there's a round portion in there, and it's kind of, I call it the roulette wheel because it's kind of high in the middle and kind of dimpled like this, like a roulette wheel is sort of shaped. That was his model, and some flat earthers today, at least half-heartedly, talk about this one. I think most flat earthers, however, realize that the four corners talked about twice there in the Scriptures, once in the Old, once in the New, are references to the four cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. Even today we talk about weather of the wind, for instance, coming out of the west, southwest. Well, you're relating it to four cardinal directions. That's the way most of us understand this. Okay, what about the ends of the earth? There are 28 times the phrase ends of the earth appears in the Old Testament. For instance, Psalm 67:7, it says, God shall bless us, let all the ends of the earth fear him. They say, aha, if you go to a globe, you go around and around and around that globe, you will never reach the end of that globe. So this cannot be talking about a globe earth. But if the earth is round and flat like this, there definitely is an edge. We call it the ice wall of Antarctica. Slam dunk, the earth is flat. Well, hold on a minute. Let's look at this just a little bit. I've got it underlined there. There's a parallel passage here. It says, God shall bless us, and then let all the ends of the earth fear him. Now, I ask you, if it's talking here about the ends of the earth being a physical edge, then you're talking about geography. Can geography fear God? No, it's not talking about geography, it's talking about people. Here's another one I can't believe some flat earthers use. The tree of Daniel 4. They read Daniel 4:11. It says, "The tree grew up and became strong, and its top reached to heaven, and it was visible to the end of the whole earth." They say, aha, on a globe. If you have a giant tree grow up, no matter how tall it gets, half of the earth can't see it. It's on the other side of the earth. But if the earth is round and flat like this, then you can have a tree anywhere on the earth, and people can see this tree. Well, let's dig into this. This is not a standalone verse in chapter 4. It's actually part of an entire narrative and nicely encapsulated. The entire 4th chapter is a complete narrative of an event that happened to Daniel there in Babylon. And we can look at this. It says, the previous verse says this, "The visions of my head as I lay in bed were these. I saw and behold a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height was great." This was Nebuchadnezzar talking, the king, and he was having a dream. Several points I want to make. It was a dream. I could have several verses listed there, verses 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 18, and 19. That many times it says it was a dream, it was a dream, it was a dream. I think we can be pretty certain it was a dream. What the current flat earth model, this is a diagram that I've seen on many of their websites. Again, you've got that circle disc there with a dome over top, and you've got the stars there. And what happens every day is that the stars, the whole sky spins around. You've got this axis right here above the North Pole, and the whole thing spins around. Now, right away, you'll realize that if it's all spinning around, then nothing is rising or setting. They're just going around. And if the sun is up there, then why don't we have daylight all the time? In fact, how can flat earthers explain day and night? Well, it's very simple, they say. You have the little dotted circle there representing the motion of the sun throughout the day. And the sun is a spotlight. It shines down a conical shape of light like this. And so when we're under that cone, we see daylight, and we're not, it's dark. So this is a little video that shows, illustrates this nicely. This came from a flat earth website. The little white thing over in the dark, that's the moon. The bright thing in the light, that yellow thing, that is the sun. As it goes around, And notice it's going to be night for me, then day, and then night, and then day, because I live in North America, and then night. And notice as it does that, the sun gets progressively closer and farther from my location. For right here, it will be very close. Here it will be far away. Here it will be close, and there it will be far away. So throughout the day, and throughout the night for that matter, the sun's getting progressively closer and farther away from me. If the sun's closer to me, it's going to appear larger to me. If it's farther away, it's going to appear smaller. That's pretty clear stuff. That's what we call perspective, folks. Flat earthers like to use that term. I hope they understand at least a little what that means. More distant objects look smaller to us. So I tested this claim. I tested this 3.5 years ago. I took a photograph of the sun at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time when the sun was 8 degrees above the horizon. And then I took another photograph of the sun at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That was local noon that day when the sun was as high in the sky as possible. And so I did the numbers on this. I determined from the figures I had that the sun ought to appear 6.4 times larger in the second photograph. I ask you, look at those two diagrams, those two figures. Are they the same size or not? This in itself disproves the flat earth model. Other examples of false claims. They say that the North Star is visible well into the southern hemisphere. I've been to the southern hemisphere 10 times, looked for the North Star. It isn't there. I could tell very easily, looking all night, the North Star is never going to be visible much south of the equator. Flat earthers stopped making that claim because it's blatantly false, as anybody who's been to the southern hemisphere can testify is the case. Another one is the circular patterns of stars throughout the night can happen only on a flat earth. I've seen both of these claims made repeatedly by flat earthers on the internet, and both are completely wrong and false. If you're going to position yourself on the earth, I can put a star there on that little circle. It goes from stars on the left to stars on the right. So if the dome is spinning around like this, then stars are going to go in a circle. Now, if you are on the axis of that circle, that is along that red line that passes down to the North Pole of the earth, then the path of the stars will look like this. It will look like a circle. But what happens if you get off that axis, say over to where I live in the United States, or maybe South America or Australia? You're going to be viewing that circle obliquely like this, and when you view a circle obliquely like this, what shape do you have? You don't get a circle anymore, you get an ellipse. And the farther off you get, the more elliptical it looks. Only at the North Pole on the earth would you see stars going in circles around the skies. You would not see them, ordinarily you'd see them all doing this, if the earth is flat with a spinning dome over top. But this is what you see. I took this photograph myself. It looks very much like the one Jim Bonser took. The same sort of thing. You're only seeing a half-hour exposure, but if you went completely through 24 hours, it'd be complete circles. There are no ellipses showing up here. How do flat earthers explain lunar eclipses? Well, they try to point out that lunar eclipses have been seen with both the sun and the moon in the sky, and that actually happens occasionally. It's called a selenelion. They try to impugn that this isn't possible. Well, it is possible because refraction can raise, if the sun and the moon are low in the sky, can raise them up about a half degree. But beyond that, that's atmospheric refraction. But the sun and the moon and the earth shadow are not points. They actually have a physical extent. Every lunar eclipse, there's a region on one side of the earth, a real thin strip, where the beginning of the eclipse is observable at sunset, and on the other side, where the end of the eclipse is observable at sunrise. It happens at every eclipse that this happens, lunar eclipse. You need excellent weather, and you need no obstructions and a good clear view of the horizon in both directions. That's asking a lot. I've never seen a selenelion. I'd love to see one, but I've just never had the opportunity. I've seen plenty of lunar eclipses. Now, notice, however, in all of this that flat earthers don't offer any positive explanation. They just simply try to chuck rocks at the conventional cosmology. Well, that's fine. You're wrong, but that's fine. Come up with your own explanation for lunar eclipses. What about solar eclipses? Well, they don't explain those either. They say something comes in front of the sun, but they don't ever seem to know what it is. They're just convinced that the conventional understanding is wrong. I get so tired of talking to flat earthers about this. I ask the question, what caused the lunar eclipse, and then what caused the solar eclipse? How far away is the sun? All these kind of questions. And the answers I get is, I don't know, but I know what it isn't. They define the world in a very weird way. They define the world in terms of what they don't believe or don't know, in terms of what they do believe or do know. It's a most strange way of looking at the world. They claim the moon is a transparent disk. You can see stars shining through it. Again, that is not true. I've watched a number of lunar occultations where the moon passes in front of a star, and when it does, the star disappears. You can't see it shining through. And they make that claim anyway. Again, that's another false claim that they make. I have a photograph here. This is the star Arcturus. I've got an arrow pointing to it. Hopefully you can see it on the video there. And there's the moon. It's the first quarter phase. And after about another 20 minutes, the moon moved forward. There's the rest of the moon, by the way, because it's half lit and half dark. And a little bit later on, it moved forward and it covered up Arcturus. Arcturus is not visible there. Excuse me, not Arcturus, Aldebaran, I misspoke. If the Earth is flat, then nothing can orbit the Earth. So there are no satellites, and the moon doesn't orbit either. It just goes in big circles. You can't break through the glass dome, so there's nothing there. There are no satellites. There are no astronauts, and we haven't been to the moon, except I know of at least 2 Christians who walked on the moon. Actually, they came to Christ later, but Charlie Duke and Jim Irwin. Jim Irwin is now deceased. But I contacted Charlie Duke a few years ago and I asked him, look, would you give me a quote on this? He said, sure, be happy to. He said, I was a lunar module pilot of the Apollo 16 mission to the moon. We launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on April 16th, 1972. We left Earth orbit for our 3-day trip to the moon about 3 hours later. As we maneuvered our spacecraft to dock with our lunar module, the Earth came into view about 20,000 miles away. It was an awesome sight. As you can see in the photo, the Earth is obviously a sphere and not a flat circle. As we journeyed to the moon, we could look out our windows and see a smaller Earth, and each time we would see different land masses, so it was obviously rotating on its axis. Charlie Duke, Christian astronaut. Or consider Jeffrey Williams. He's more recent. He spent a lot of time in the space shuttle, took a lot of photographs of the Earth from the space shuttle and space station, and he had a book called The Work of His Hands. I have a copy of that book. It's marvelous photography it has, and he has many pictures of the Earth, some of them showing clearly that the Earth is a globe. No tricks here, no fisheye lens. This is actually a picture. What is the motivation of the flat earthers? I think some are undoubtedly well-intentioned. They mean well, they really believe this, they're convinced of this, but they're just wrong. I think some are doing this as a prank, and they're literally having quite a bit of fun, quite a bit of amusement at the people who are taking this all too seriously when it really is just a prank. I'm also convinced that some out there are just doing this for malice. They're attempting to make Christians look foolish and to discredit Scripture, and the people who want to argue the Earth is flat from a biblical standpoint are doing their bidding for them, and that is hurtful. And it really hurts me to see people do that. Well, if you want to learn more about this, I have written a book. It's called Falling Flat, A Refutation of Flat Earth Claims. We have it available from Answers in Genesis. We also have a DVD called Faith on the Edge. We didn't produce this, but I'm in this and a few other people done by the Creation Guys, and we carry this product as well.